Hi, this is Wayne Zell, and welcome to Blueprint for Wealth, a fast-paced videocast designed to help you realize your personal dreams of wealth and freedom. Today, we're going to have a special topic on Spousal Lifetime Access Trusts, followed by our special guest, Jeff Conroy of Embody, Inc. Let's get to it, but before we do, let me remind you that Blueprint for Wealth is brought to you by Zell Law, an estate, business, tax, and fiduciary planning law firm located in Reston, Virginia, and Savannah, Georgia, with clients all across the United States. If you'd like to know more about us, visit us on the web at zelllaw.com. So let's get to it and talk about Spousal Lifetime Access Trusts. We've been getting a lot of requests for the Spousal Lifetime Access Trust. People want to know what it is and why they've been hearing so much about it over the last several months. In fact, we've been using spousal access trusts for decades to basically set up a trust for the benefit of a spouse and other beneficiaries, kids, grandkids, friends, family, whoever, that can benefit from a gift to an irrevocable trust. It's an irrevocable trust that one spouse creates for another trust, another spouse. The spouse beneficiary can be the trustee, and if they are, we have to limit their distribution authority over trust assets to an ascertainable standard, often known as health, education, maintenance, and support. The spouse beneficiary is not allowed to contribute assets themselves to the trust because it would treat it as a self-settled spendthrift trust and may not be recognized for creditor protection purposes. We can also set it up so that the grantor, the creator of the trust, is entitled to be reimbursed for any income taxes that they pay on behalf of the trust. Under a revenue ruling that came out in 2004, the grantor pays the tax for the benefit of the trust and the trust beneficiaries. It's a grantor trust. It's ignored for income tax purposes. And under that revenue ruling, the grantor's payment of the tax is not treated as an additional gift to the trust. What's better than that? In addition, we can set it up so that an independent trustee or a trust protector can reimburse the grantor for taxes that the grantor has to pay for the benefit of the trust beneficiaries. None of these rights will cause the trust to be included in the grantor's estate for estate tax purposes. In some ways, this is known as an intentionally defective grantor trust. It's defective for income tax purposes because it's ignored, but it's highly effective for estate tax purposes. The grantor is not allowed to be a beneficiary of the trust, but you can structure these trusts in a way that the spouse beneficiary may, and I emphasize may, be able to have a power of appointment to be able to direct the assets at the spouse beneficiary's death back to the grantor without tainting the trust for estate tax purposes. You've got to be careful on this because we don't want it to be inadvertently included in the grantor's estate for estate tax purposes. Depending on state law, like I said, the grantor can get access to these assets. But the grantor also has the power to borrow from the trust if it's structured properly. You can even set up a SLAT, a Spousal Lifetime Access Trust, for each spouse. But there's two things you need to be careful of. One is, we don't want to set them up too close in time because the IRS doesn't like the arrangement where you're just doing trusts that are basically reciprocal in nature and setting them up exactly at the same time with similar assets. They might collapse the arrangement under the so-called step transaction doctrine. There's another doctrine that the IRS has power to invoke. It's under the Estate of Grace case that came out from the U.S. Supreme Court in 1969, and basically the court said, you cannot have trusts that are virtually identical and have them recognized as SLATs. They cannot be reciprocal, in other words. And so we need to create non-reciprocal trusts. How do we do that? There are lots of ways that are identified on this slide. We would fund the trust with different assets on different dates, preferably separated in time by tax years and even by months, not days or weeks. We can give the spouse, one spouse can have what's called a testamentary limited power of appointment to appoint the assets to anybody else that both spouses agree upon. You can even put governors in there to require somebody who is a non-adverse person, somebody who doesn't participate in the trust, to watch over the spouse beneficiary if they're acting as the trustee and exercising this limited power of appointment. You want to have independent trustees involved in these trusts, and preferably a different independent trustee for each trust to make certain decisions regarding distributions not only to the spouse beneficiary, but also other beneficiaries of the trust. You can use a vehicle known as a trust protector, not only to watch over the trustees and make sure that they're carrying out their fiduciary duties, but you can give the trust protector certain powers to modify the trust that you can't give to yourself as the grantor of the trust, you can't give it to the spouse as a beneficiary of the trust, and you certainly can't give it to the kids. So this trust protector can exercise powers over the trust that would expand and make flexible an otherwise irrevocable trust. Here's a diagram of how the SLATs would work. You're going to need to distinguish between the two trusts, Trust 1 and Trust 2. And after Trust 1 has terminated and it distributes the assets after the spouse is deceased, it might set up another trust or trusts for the benefit of kids, grandkids, which could take advantage of exemptions not only from the estate tax, but also the generation skipping transfer tax. So the Spousal Lifetime Access Trust is a valuable tool, a valuable vehicle in doing estate planning for our clients. If you'd like to know more about SLATs, give us a call at 571-203-9355 or look us up on the web at zellaw.com. And thanks for listening to Blueprint for Wealth. Stay tuned for our special guest, Jeff Conroy, who joins us right after this. Welcome back to Blueprint for Wealth, and with me today is my special guest, Jeff Conroy, the CEO of Embody. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Wayne. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you as a special guest on Blueprint for Wealth. Let me tell you first a little bit about Jeff and Embody. Embody is developing a collagen-based medical device for the repair of tendon and ligament industries, specifically Achilles tendons and rotator cuffs, which we know a lot of people who suffer from those tears. And originally the company was funded by DARPA, which is an agency of the federal government, but really it has succeeded wildly and is launching its new product, Tapestry, which has been cleared to repair these Achilles and rotator cuff injuries. But Jeff also serves as an independent director on a couple of other life sciences companies, and he is currently on the board of advisors at the Apex Center for Entrepreneurs at Virginia Tech. It's a great journey that you've been on. How did you start your career? I mean, I've seen, you've been a consultant for many years, but how did you get into the life sciences field in the first place?
Yeah, appreciate it. I started, I had always been interested in biology as a student. Although I graduated, studied business and graduated with a business degree, I always wanted to work at the intersection of science and business. And when I graduated from college, I took a job with Abbott Laboratories and took a sales job, learned all about immunology and infectious disease and hepatitis and HIV, and really cemented for me the excitement of how do these businesses run when you're solving medical, technological, product development challenges in the business of life science.
So we are going to focus on a few things today. One of the things we're going to ask Jeff to tell us about is how he got to be a CEO in a life sciences company, because it hasn't been a singular journey. It's been a long journey. He's been a consultant. He moved up through the ranks in different companies. And then after he tells us what the key steps are, we are going to probe into the life of the CEO today in a life sciences company. And lastly, we're going to look for Jeff to give us some advice for the aspiring CEOs who are listening to this broadcast. Today, you're at Embody. Tell us a little bit about the products that you're creating at Embody that are so exciting.
Sure. So Embody has developed molecular level additive manufacturing technology. That means we've learned how to take molecules of collagen and structure them into these implants that mimic the native microarchitecture of your own tendon tissue. And in fact, your own cells migrate to our implants and grow new tendon tissue. We were very fortunate to develop a relationship with DARPA and have access to have funded the company with DARPA, and now near 20 million of non-dilutive funds between DARPA and the Air Force and the U.S. Army, really based on the needs of warfighters and across DoD, pervasive sports medicine injuries and challenges to readiness. So our products today are being used in about 10 different soft tissue augmentation repairs. We will launch in the first quarter of 2022 a major arthroscopic instrumented rotator cuff repair solution. It's $1 billion market for us, and we think there's a big opportunity to build, a 50, 60, $100 million business here at Embody over the coming years. And then we've also taken this understanding of working with the collagen molecule and been able to develop now collagen-based sutures. So sutures that are pro-healing. They're load-bearing and can help you heal. But then once you get through the healing cascade, tissue grows in and the suture starts to be resorbed and new tissue is formed. So it's really about using the power of biology to accelerate healing, to minimize inflammation, to minimize scarring, and I think mobility is a challenge that we all face as we age, whether you're in sports young or later years. And so preserving mobility is really the mission of the company.
Do the techniques that you're using, these products, are they actually medical devices, or are they inserted via surgery, or is it both?
Yeah, it's both. So these are surgical implants. So it's classified. They're Class 2 medical devices according to the FDA. We have to go through proper development paths, and the FDA clears these products through the 510K clearance process. And then surgeons would develop specific procedures, whether it's Achilles or rotator cuff or hamstring. There are some very simple procedures to insert and affix these implants so that the patients can benefit.
That's really cool. How did you get on the path towards getting into this company? What was the, you started at Abbott.
Yeah.
How did you get into the consulting world, and then how did you evolve ultimately to become a CEO of a startup that is rocket ship?
I actually appreciate the characterization. We're an aspiring rocket ship. I hope I can describe it as a rocket ship someday. It's interesting. I think that whatever path, we're each on our own path, and the more wisdom we gain over our lives, the more we understand that we're competing with ourselves, and we're in these positions because of a series of experiences we had previously. My first experience as an entrepreneur was starting a t-shirt company in college and learning the excitement of coming up with a product and generating sales and making deposits at the bank. My interest in biology, as you said, led me to Abbott. I ended up in a number of consecutively smaller companies. One was acquired by Thermoelectron. I learned how to buy companies, and as a part of integrating acquisitions in a large corporation. And I had said to my wife one day, after traveling hundreds of thousands of miles one year, I said, I thought I could probably replace my income if I had done half or a third of the deals that I did. And so it led me to start my own consulting company. And I very much think, we're all the CEO of our own business. That's the old Tom Peters book. I think that for me, it really came down to I thrived in smaller and smaller environments, and I really got a big charge out of the fact that one person can change a business. I think back to my time at Abbott, and I reflect on a massively successful company. Everyone should work at one world-class company, and my network there served me well. But at the same time, I look back and think, this is designed so one person can't screw it up. And so the smaller, as you move into smaller companies, and one of the tenets of our culture is every person we add has to have the ability to change the company significantly. And so that just jazzed me. And even before I was a CEO, just being a part of some teams like this, throughout my consulting as a licensing and business consultant in the life sciences, I had the occasion to do a turnaround of a small tissue bank, and I got to learn about how cadaver tissue was used in surgical repair, what some of the limitations of those products were. They stimulate scar tissue formation, or they don't resorb into native tissue. And there had been very little innovation, and I thought to myself, I wanted to do a company that would develop technology that would enable us to build products that stimulated healing in soft tissue, and started working on relationships, finding scientists who could be a part of the vision, and then having been in Washington for 25 years, looking to DOD and DARPA for ways that we might benefit from the alignment of interests. Okay, DARPA is an organization. DOD is an organization dependent on operational readiness, and so we ended up finding out that mobility was the number one challenge in sports medicine injuries, rotator cuff, Achilles, ACL. Biggest challenge, not only across special operations, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, but the folks moving supplies and logistics, same injuries. And so
heavy lifting.
I found a problem I fell in love with. If you think about,
so was this an idea that you basically created?
It was. Well, it was an idea that I listened to. Okay, so it was an idea that I had the occasion to meet with surgeons over the course of a couple years who talked about limitations of products currently in the market without an ability to say what does the future look like? What's a better version? And a better version would be, not skin from the back of a cadaver being used to repair your Achilles or rotator cuff, but maybe a biologic substrate, a biologic material that might stimulate new tissue growth. And so we zeroed in on biomaterials, we zeroed in on collagen, and decided to build a company that would demonstrate excellence at working with collagen at the molecular level and engineering structures. And fundamentally, that's what DARPA funded. DARPA funded, we're developing additive manufacturing methods that used collagen molecules, and the things that we made from those manufacturing processes are tapestry and microbraid. There are products that are surgical implants. And so
are these patented products?
We have, actually we just yesterday received notice of our 7th patent in the last 10 months.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We have about 28 more in process. And, this is, everyone's business has an algebra equation. And so, big market need, interesting, complete solution that can be paid for, IP protected, able to demonstrate clinical evidence. These are all the things that we're trying to validate now.
And the beauty of this DARPA funding is that it allows you to utilize the technology commercially without restriction, correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And particularly with the vehicles that we used, the contract vehicles that we used, we have great latitude. DARPA's incentive was they wanted our product available for DoD participants. We've actually, through our first 200 patients this year, we do have both active military and VA patients who've been involved, who've received Tapestry.
And what are the results? Everybody's very pleased with the results?
Results are great. Surgeons are pleased. Patients are pleased. The most excitement, some of our first surgeries were in total shoulder arthroplasty, so shoulder replacement, and using Tapestry to reinforce the subscapularis tendon, because shoulders don't fail because metal fails. Shoulders fail because soft tissue fails.
Right.
And then, in fact, not only do they fail 5 or 6% of the time, but 50% of the time, patients report that they don't get their full range of motion back, or they don't feel mobility. So now we have our first data in the first 3 or 4 patients. In 6 months, our implant is gone. An independent musculoskeletal radiologist can't tell that there was an injury or that there's any tendinosis, and all we have is thickened new tendon tissue. Wow. And so we're very, very excited. We get calls from the surgeons who we're working with 2 minutes after they get this data to say this is better than we expected. Now, with anything in clinical practice, the real challenge for us is now to develop long-term clinical evidence over the next couple of years. We're launching a patient registry in January for subscap, and then we'll launch a patient registry in March for rotator cuff. Mm-hmm. And this is going to allow us to tell the story over the next 2 years of how and why and where patients are benefiting, and ultimately, can we reduce long-term re-tear rates in sports medicine? That's really what we're trying to do.
Is there a competitor to you in this field in terms of what you're doing?
There are a range of competitors using different materials and different structures. I think we've tried to carve ourselves out in a little bit of a unique position because we've come up with an implant that has a structural advantage, meaning the copolymer approach that we've taken and the physical structure to mimic the microarchitecture of your native tendon sets us apart. We've also innovated in the delivery and fixation. So on our arthroscopic instrumentation, we've tried to make it easier to deliver an implant and faster to deliver the implant. And everything in healthcare also comes down to economics. We've got to come up with the right solution for patients and surgeons, and we've got to be competitive, particularly post-COVID, shifts in volume of surgeries to ambulatory surgery centers, outpatient centers. So, we're really seeking to differentiate ourselves from competitors with speed, with outcomes, and with economics.
What's it like being a CEO in life sciences today?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I think that anyone who chooses to do this initially probably does it because they have great confidence in themselves, or they think that they're going to be able to will things to happen. I think those are at least personally speaking formative signs of naivete and optimism. Right? We bundle it all together and we go, we're going to do it.
And entrepreneurship.
And entrepreneurship. And I think in healthcare, there are plenty of people who generate massive economic success in healthcare, but no one goes into healthcare as the shortest path to make money. This is about how do we do something that's not been done before? How do we bring a benefit to patients who will be better off as a result of the thing that we've created? And as a result, can we make a case that our product or our solution or our repair is scalable enough and pervasive enough that it becomes a standard? In those instances, you have avenues to public markets, you have avenues to partnerships or acquisition. Right. And so, that was one of the interesting developments for me as someone who's become a CEO and now 7 years into this adventure. What I can tell you is that it's all about the team. This is 100% about the group of people that you choose to be next to you and with you and contribute. And also, we have a few things we talk about. One is that team. Before we had patents, before we had a product, before we had investors, all we had is a team. Now, as we have gone, and this year we've gone from 17 to 38. I believe we just made our offer to a 39th team member. You have to remember, in a company this size, your culture changes with every hire, and you get the culture you deserve. So if you're not communicating your values and living your values and learning how to work together and setting expectations, things can go sideways very quickly.
Sure.
So for me,
what's the one bit of advice that you would give to an aspiring CEO today before we wind up?
I would say it's people first. It's not about you. It's about them. I would also say that if I could do anything different, it would be I would make decisions faster with less information. We're all constantly seeking 80, 90, 95% of information to make decisions. 60, 65%, make more decisions. You may make a few bad decisions, but you'll make more decisions and you'll act. Take risks, embrace uncertainty, and this is not about intelligence. Everybody in this business is smart. There is no shortage of smart people. It's the folks who deal with uncertainty, the folks who have the grit and determination. And then the last one is just communicator. My job is I'm a communicator, and it's really about constituencies that we deal with, not just our team, not just our customers, our surgeons, our shareholders. And so you are the master of the message. And if you build the right team, you become the execution, you become known for execution. And that's really what we've tried to do.
Well, congratulations on your recent successes at Embody, and I wish you all the luck in the world going forward.
Wayne, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate it, and thanks for including me today.
And thanks to Jeff Conroy for being our special guest on Blueprint for Wealth. Stay tuned next time for another special topic and special guest. Have a great week.